I love how it does it every time. What's up? Shop Talk. Shop Talk Podcast. And once again, we are live from the workbench. Hey. These fucking levels. This is for September 9th, 2018. This should be for episode 28. Just kills me. Shouldn't say that. So we had a lot of people that passed away this week. And I was going to wait to do this till tomorrow, but I'm doing it today. I had a long week, maybe about 50 hours worked. So Burt Reynolds passed away. Also Mac Miller, which I don't know a whole lot about him. I don't know what he overdosed from, but I will say this, and people that, I'll get a lot of flack for this, a lot of backlash, but I don't care. Some people will say, well, if you have an addiction, that's a disease. Shut the fuck up. You like getting high, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what he died from, and I don't want to necessarily speak about him, but if you do heroin or whatever drug of your choice, I'm not saying it's not a disease at all. What I'm saying is, take double of what you normally take and pump it into your fucking arm. That's all I'm going to say. I don't care for heroin addicts or anybody. I know it's like 80% of people that were addicted to painkillers or whatever, and they couldn't get them anymore, and so they started doing heroin. Don't want to fucking hear it. No excuses. No fucking excuses. So, I definitely had a eye-opening week, and I hope you did too. Sitting in your cubicle. But, yeah, normally I roll in here and I have about 5 to 10 pages of stuff to talk about. And other times I don't have, I know what I want to go into about on the podcast, but, and then I just rattle off some shit off the top of my head for 45 to 50 minutes or whatever. And I know you guys like the longer format. Everybody that listens to podcasts, they like longer formats. And I do too, because I listen to a lot of them. Let's see how loud this is. Am I not getting any sound at all? Oh, God. Jesus. Let's see. That's kind of loud, but it's not loud enough. But yeah, I mean, I don't really think that anybody, because I do cooking videos if you've listened to the podcast before, and you will see them. They'll also come up on the iTunes podcast app. But I had a long week. I know it's not an excuse. I know most everybody has to have a job. I'm working 2 part-time jobs, and they're kicking my ass. So, last week I had quite a bit of material and breezed through it, but it could have been like 55 minutes instead of the 45 minutes that came out. I know. So, he also, the editing with the cooking videos, and also I do voiceovers for the cooking videos themselves, and I get it, totally get it, and I honestly don't understand how people get by with these. Yeah, they say the economy's good. Okay, I need to stay off social media as far as politics go, and I know I get ramped up about some stuff, but it's a waste of my time. It's literally a waste of my time. There is no point for me to get involved with anything on social media when I could just be talking about it on here. And then on top of that, I mean, it's just a waste of my time. It's wasted effort. And I've been a pessimist my whole life, or pessimistic my whole life, and I've been extremely miserable lately. And I know I need to do a few different things to change that and better myself. Because you only live once. You know, as you say, you live once, die twice. But I just need to look at it in a positive light. Pessimistic people, they say, get further in life because they have lower expectations. Well, my lower expectations they're not getting me anywhere. So I just need to change some things in my life and how I go about living life. I watched some stuff, Joe Rogan podcast, which is probably one of the biggest podcasts. But I've watched quite a bit. The Diamond Dallas Page stuff was cool. Elon Musk, that was eye-opening, groundbreaking for me to have them talk back and forth. Also, anybody that's listened to this before, they know that I don't have a whole lot of other people on the show as well. That I might have to change something up and get not necessarily another person in here, but just interview some more people. Back when I interviewed Brandon, the garbage disposal Clark, that was a good interview. And it could have actually went on longer, and I kind of cut it short. Wish I had it. But yeah, some of that stuff's going to have to. And check out his channel on YouTube. He actually has a channel on Roku. I don't understand how that works, but yeah. But yeah, there's some things I have to change. I worked too much last week, and the schedules are starting to collide with each other. So, yeah, I know what I want to do, and I'll say it in another podcast. But hold on just a second. So, yeah. So I know what I want to do, and I'm going to keep that to myself until I accomplish that goal, and I've been waiting. So when the opportunity arises, I will be applying for those type of jobs. Basically, if anybody's listened to this before, they know that I worked in a pawn shop for almost my whole adult life, and before that, a music shop. And I've always kind of been the customer service, area. But I'm done. I'm done with that. I do, however, still want to start my own pawn shop. And in Ohio, where I live, and I feel as I shouldn't have to move or anything like that, because I could move to another state if I looked into the rules and regulations of all the different states and probably start a pawn shop there. Problem being, I don't know anybody there, for one, in most states, in the different rules and regulations. They make a lot more money in other states on the interest. So a lot of people think when you pawn something that you're selling it to them. That is a misconception, highly misconception. You are not selling it to them. If you pawn it with them, it's still your property until you forfeit your property, which in different states is different amounts of months, days, blah, blah, blah. And those rules and regulations, they change. They usually change every 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years. But we'll get further into that. But yeah, when you pawn something to a pawn shop, wherever that may be, all over the world, you are not selling it to them. They have pawn shops in Japan, by the way. You're not selling it to them. It's your item. You just have to pay the interest, and storage fee for that month as on top of the principal. And then even most people that have never pawned anything before, they would come in and they would say, well, how does it work? You loan me 100 and I pay you 100 back? No. You can thank your state for that, okay? You can thank your federal government for that because they are making the money, some kind of money. And I've even talked with the place I worked at for 9 years. I even asked basically the store manager, well, how much does the state make off of the interest and storage fee every month? He couldn't answer that question. Does that tell you anything? Which is a whole nother story because they're trying to sell their business, which I fucking think is hilarious. And it makes a lot of sense because they recently just changed their hours. So nobody in the whole store is getting 40 hours a week, which I get it. You don't want to pay overtime. And there were some managers and also employees that would take advantage of that before, and they would work as much as they wanted to. But mind you, the business has to pay for all that stuff. So, to start a pawn shop in Ohio, and you can thank Jim French of Buckeye Pawn for really pushing this and getting it to where it used to be 100,000 K liquid. Okay, so, and I used to think, well, your house is liquid. I'll get a house. No, your house isn't liquid. I don't believe, and I should have looked further in this before I started a podcast about this, but I don't believe that any stocks or bonds are liquid. Now, they could be, but the whole thing is anyone going to buy them right away? No. So, in my eyes, they're not liquid. Now, you can also use, say you have inventory. You can use that towards that as well. Well, who has $100,000 worth of shit laying around? Yeah, what? How many Rolexes do you own? How many Petit Philippe's do you own? How many, those are watches, by the way. How many, 1959 Gibson Les Pauls do you have laying around? Even if you have one, you're in there like swimwear. But what I'm saying is, who has that fucking kind of inventory laying around? Now, you also have to obtain a license, but you have to take a test to get it. Now, my one friend down in Round Town, we'll just call it that. Anybody in the greater Columbus area knows what I'm talking about. Round Town, you drive around. He used his grandma's money, basically, and her name is on the business, and he took the test. And basically, the person that administers the test, she basically told him how to get through the test. Okay. Test is easy. Coming up with that 100K liquid is not. And now they've changed it. Once it used to be 5% every month and $4 storage fee to get your item back. It's non-compounding. Okay. They changed it from 6% and a $6 storage fee. The $6 storage fee is what kills the customer. However, if you go to Kentucky, I think they're 20%. Now, it could have changed, too. You go down to Florida, now, in different increments of money, say it's $100, say it's $200, say it's $300, $500, blah, 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 blah. The different amounts of money is how you are charged. So if it's a $1,000 loan, you pay X amount of dollars back. And it changes in different increments. Now, the regulations for the pawn shops are all different throughout each state. So I can move to a different state and start my own pawn shop. I guarantee there's many other states that you don't have to have X amount of dollars liquid to start a shop. The reason why they started that in Ohio, Buckeye Pawn, is because they didn't want fly-by-night pawn shops. Basically, they didn't want foreigners moving here, starting a pawn shop, taking money, leaving, or foreigners. It's got to be that, because it couldn't be homegrown, because basically, anytime you have a pawn shop, you're territorial, okay? You don't want any other business infringing upon that. Okay, I get it. But here's my big gripe with it. And I've even thought about hiring an attorney. I think I've said this before. And fighting them in court about that, about the 125K. It'd be different if it was like 10K, 20K. But here's the reason why also. Within about 10 months to 12 months, you are going to need about roughly $100,000 to lend out till your money starts circulating and just, recycling. We'll just put it that way. Going in a circle till you start getting your money back, where people are paying every month on their shit. And also the stuff that comes out for sale, you also need to know how to sell it. Are you going to put stuff on eBay? You got to. You have to. There's reverb. There's all different kinds of things. And when my other buddy started a shop, he didn't even know what a gold refinery was. And I told him about it. And he probably would have lost his ass and probably would have already been out of business. But I told him about it. Talked to another guy that used to work for Buckeye Pawn, that he owns his own retail shop down in Circleville. Well, actually, he's moved up to the short north. And he was pissed that I was telling this other guy. He said, pawn shop, in quotation. Pawn shop secrets. Okay, get the fuck off my back. For one, I was young, didn't know any better. For two, guy needs help. And I thought maybe one day I might need a job. So there's a lot of different things that you can look into this. If you want to start your own pawn shop, it's very hard to get into. And some of the other people that I talk to at these new jobs that I'm working at, and they go, "Oh, why don't you go back to what you were doing?" They don't understand how hard it is to get a job at a pawn shop. And once you get one of those jobs there, very few people leave. Because once they set their place there, it's over. Other people do leave. Yes, there is a turnover rate, but the turnover rate is very low. And most people weed themselves out anyways. And once you get a good employee, you don't want to let them go. The whole problem is, too, I had an interview for another pawn shop, and I wanted X amount of dollars an hour. They wanted to pay me less. They still offered me a job. However, I did not take it. They had a lot of guns in the shop and a nice vault. It's very nice, clean pawn shop. And they offered me shit after fucking 10 years of experience. And then you also got to remember that some of these owners, too, have a high level of greed. I understand you want to fill out somebody and see if you don't know them very well. You want to see if they're going to work out. I totally get it. Well, you're not going to. You need to start me out at X amount of dollars, not offer me shit and expect me to work there or be your manager of the store. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Now, I've met almost everybody in Columbus, Ohio, that works and also owns a pawn shop. So take it for what you will. There is very few instances where a store gets shut down or anything like that. You have to be almost totally corrupt. There was a shop on West Broad years ago. They were growing weed in the basement. Well, eventually that's going to be legal. And then there was another shop. The guy used to work at Lev's, and then he started a pawn shop like right across the street from Lev's on Parsons Avenue, and he was so you can't just buy stuff off a customer or off a thief. If you suspect that it's stolen, you are not supposed to take it. If you are knowingly taking something in to your store that is stolen, yes, you could lose your license. It is heavily regulated, and it should be. It probably should be more regulated than it actually is, because I used to say to some people, it's not my job to figure out whether it's stolen or not. My job is just to buy it and resell it. But in the same instance, if I knew something was hot to trot, they would call it hand warmers. They also called them that. The item, that is. It means it's hot, stolen. Yeah, you want to take it. If you got a bad vibe against somebody, you want to take it. A lot of times, some people would want to sell you something and then put it in someone else's name, meaning that they have someone else with them with an ID, and they want you to write the loan but put it in someone else's name. I, however, would not do that. And I would kill the whole fucking thing. Ixnay, I would not fucking take it in at all if they would try to do that. Especially once I would see patterns in people that would keep coming in. Yeah, just because someone keeps coming in doesn't mean that their shit's stolen. What I'm saying is if they want to put it in someone else's name, sometimes we would go ahead and go, okay, it's all right. They're all right. Other times we go, no. This guy is shady as fuck. Get rid of the item. This is the wrong one. I already know it. Yep. Didn't even hear anything. But I know. So, again, now say you were to buy a business, to buy a pawn shop. Or some people I've heard where they've paid half of what it was for the license, and then pay the rest of it off. You are also going to want to own the building that you're in. If you don't own it, that's fine too. You can pay a lease somewhere, but there's overhead, and that's more overhead. The only overhead is if you own it. Yeah, you're paying off a mortgage. But sometimes when you buy into a business too, the building at the time isn't worth that much, and then over time it's worth too much, and it's too expensive for you to buy in the long term. But these are all things you got to think about. Shout out to Mike's Pawn Shop on Cleveland Avenue. And, yeah. And again, some people will go, well, why do you want to start your own pawn shop? For one, I don't want to work for anybody else anymore. Have somebody tell me what to do. I know how to do that job. Running a business is a little bit different, but you can write a lot of shit off, and you can write off all the stuff that you buy a year in advance, or year prior to actually starting your business. So, and you're probably gonna be shipping a lot of stuff out. You're probably gonna be putting some stuff on eBay. You know, there's shipping calculators, all different kinds of things you're gonna need. Packing material. There's some shops too that don't require. They have free shipping. Well, I think the customer should pay for the shipping. That's a whole nother thing. It's how you want to go about it. I will say, and I'm not going to lie, that I have a few things in pawn, and I have pawned things over, once I realized what a pawn shop was, I have pawned some things. And, yeah, it's a way of life for some people. it's not necessarily a way of life for me. I told myself I was never going to pawn anything again. But I always used to tell customers too, and they're like, well, I'm never going to come back. Don't ever say that. You never know when you're going to need money. And you can use many items as collateral. The best items are the small items. Something you could take right off your wrist. Piece of gold. That's the best item. And for me, as a customer of different pawn shops, I would say that gold is the best item. I can take it right off my wrist. I give it to you. I get some money. I leave. However, there's other things like a TV. That's not a great item to pawn. Most pawn shops don't have room in their storage areas. And, say they got 20 TVs lined up. Well, there's a very good possibility that a TV can get scratched up next to another TV, or they're pulling out the one TV. Your TV's still there. Swipe right across the front of it. Got a big mark across the front of it. I mean, it does happen. It very frequently, and it's not the pawn shop's problem. I'll tell you why it's not their problem. You're bringing a big fucking bulky item to pawn. What do you expect? I used to work. I used to sell and pawn tube TVs. Oh, could you imagine that? That's how fucking long I've been doing this. So, big ass Trinitrons. Trinitrons were heavier than any other fucking TV. But I remember a 25-inch TV. Hell, I would buy them at the thrift shop if they were super clean. Hopefully, they had a remote. And I would buy them for not that much. And I would take them to the shop that I worked at. I would sell them for $100. If that tells you how fucking long I was doing it. So, that's why I want to start my own shop. Now, I've talked to, we used to have every pawn shop has a detective, regardless of where you have your business at. And those detectives are usually assigned to so many different pawn shops in a certain area. And our detective, me and this other guy, we were young, and we had dreams of starting our own shop together, which eventually I told him that I'd never work for him, because that's probably how it would be, or with him, and start a shop. Because basically, he was the one with the money. I was always fucking broke. So she told us basically, oh, you should just start a buy, sell trade shop, and eventually come up with the money to start your own pawn shop. What she doesn't really understand is over time, those 10 or 12 months that we've already talked about, once your money starts revolving and going in a circle, and I'm doing this with my finger, you can't see it, that's your bread and butter. And then after that, when you get to that, once you loaned out so much money, and you get to that point where people are paying on their stuff every month, where before the stock market crash and the recession and everything like that, about 70 to 80% of people were paying on their pawns every month. And then after the recession, well, they couldn't. It was about half and half. I'm sure the percentages went back up since then. Well, they say this economy is so great. Whatever. Shit. Don't even get me started on that. The only reason why the economy is great is, well, they say the unemployment rate is so much lower is because there's a shit ton of fucking minimum wage jobs out there, and people are willing to take them. Whereas before, people want to take them. Okay? That's the end of that, okay? And that fucking orange man that you all fucking pray to, God help us all. That's all I gotta say. So, whatever he said, the economy is great. Economy's fucking shit. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if you agree with me or not. Again, what I said a couple podcasts ago, and I'll still say it again, is this is my fucking podcast. I'll say whatever the fuck I want, whatever the fuck I want, whatever I want about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. If you don't agree with me, fine. I don't fucking care. Agree with me. That's great too. I don't give a shit. Okay? It is what it is. If you want to think and out there in the world that everything is fucking going great, blah, 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 blah. Everything isn't so fucking great. It might be great for you, but maybe it's not great for me. Maybe it's not great for the guy down the street. A little off the subject. Jesus. Let's get...
Who the fuck said that?
It's not that loud.
Who's the slimy little communist shit twinkle-toed cocksucker down here who just...
If you are going to start your own shop, you are not going to be able to pay yourself for at least 4 to 6 months, depending on if you own the building or not. Keep that in mind. I hope you got dough. That's all I'm going to say. Save up your money. Yeah. Again, you're lending out money. You're a financial institution, and that's why they regulate the hours that you have for operation. However, they have changed those hours, I believe, in the last year. But I knew another guy, too, out in Springfield, Ohio, and he used to run M&M Pawn Shop in Asheville, Ohio, and they were bought out by Buckeye Pawn, and it is a Buckeye Pawn now. Tony Vallone, I don't even know if he still works there. I knew a lot of the guys that used to work at, well, not a lot of them, a few of the guys that used to work at those different pawn shops, and also my mom lives across the street from a guy that runs one of their stores. However, it's not his store. He's just the manager there. And sometimes just being a worker or a manager at one of these shops is a lot less headaches than actually owning the shop. The guy that started Buckeye, he also used to work where I worked way before I worked there. I never worked with him. But here's another thing. I've heard through the grapevine, because I knew some people that used to work there, that he has his stores mic'd up and he listens to the conversations. Yeah. What do you have anything better to do with your time? So, I mean, then again, where I worked, after my boss passed away, the daughters took over ownership of the pawn shop, and their piece of shit fucking husbands would watch video of us working. You could do this, and they could be doing this, and maybe whatever. And they were very high up. At least one of them. They're both high up in Huntington Bank, I believe. They were both high up in the banking industry. And maybe they should have been working some more hours at their own job. That's all I'm going to say. They got too involved. Maybe they got fucking greedy. Maybe they got upset about how much their wives were making. But it doesn't matter. They're pieces of shit. Yeah. It's funny. I turn on the Cavs game, which I'm a huge Cavs fan, and I was a Cavs fan way before LeBron was there. And the grandkids are sitting in the stands, like down by the players, which is fine. They're cool. But it almost made me sick. Because, you know, they're underage, so they didn't get the tickets themselves. They, you know, and good for them, you know. But the whole thing is when they grow up, they're going to look back and whatever they say they take over running the shop or whatever, which they won't. It'll be sold before then. But, I'm just a fucking piece of shit, white goyim, which, is yeah, if you're Jewish, you know what I'm talking about. But that's how they're going to think of me. Like, oh, he just worked there. Okay, whatever. And that's why you should want to start a shop yourself, because you're going to make money hand over fist. I mean, literally. Yeah, you're going to beat people out of shit. Beat people out of their product, whatever they have. I'm not talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's not that you're doing a disservice to the community. It's that you're in business to make money. So, yeah, you are going to beat them out of their item. That's just the way it works. You're not going to rip them off, You can still offer them decent money, but at the end of the day, you have to make money. Yeah. And, I will also work for 1 year for basically the McDonald's of pawn shops. And it's not your money. Again, even if you're working for a small business, it's not your money. You're playing with other people's money, but it's looked into a little bit more than whereas if you're working for some huge chain somewhere, the McDonald's of pawn shops, and you're offering them $200 on the TV you're going to sell for $300. Well, that's great. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with making $100 on something. But if you're working for a smaller shop, you're going to probably offer them even less. Usually, again, and I know I shouldn't be giving out pawn shop secrets, but it's keystone. So, you got 2 little bricks on top, or 2 little bricks on bottom, and you got 1 little brick on top. That's a keystone. Keystone badge, blah, blah, blah. And that means 2 to 1, basically. You're going to usually offer them about a third what you're going to sell it for, especially if it's a loan. Yeah, if you're buying it, you buy it for half, double your money, everything's great. Yeah, but if you're starting your own shop, that's your money. Yeah, and it might take a while. It might take a while to sell that thing. If it's going to take longer than a year, and again, every year you're going to have to pay taxes on your inventory. The first of the year. So if it's still sitting in your shop and you still haven't sold it, you're not making any money on it. However, gold you can take to a refinery. So if you're buying it at a reasonable rate, you can just take a big bag of gold, take it to a refinery, cut you a check, blah, blah, blah. So, I know. This podcast wasn't that funny. I know. And I know there's a lot of different things going on. I want to see you check some levels. Right? There we go. Yeah, this pawn shop wasn't that. This podcast wasn't that funny. But I hope you guys know some more of the inner workings of a pawn shop. And I really appreciate everybody out there that listens. Check out, I have a Patreon, but I haven't launched it yet. Check out my PayPal, paypal.me/live from the workbench if you would like to support the podcast and also the cooking videos. This shit ain't for free. I mean, it is for free, but I really, really appreciate everybody out there that donates. It's time consuming, okay? And also, I have to come up with material every week. The content will get better. Will always get better, and as we go along. This is for episode 28, I believe. Shit ain't working. There we go. But I appreciate everybody out there that listens. I hope you have a good week and enjoy your time in your cubicle at work. You guys take care.
Can it be that it was all so simple then?
Got me thinking, I remember the time.
Can it be that it was all so simple then?
Ain't no changing what's left.
Can it be that it was all so simple then?
Because we all race against death.
Can it be that it was all so simple